Hello, happy Saturday. I am a day late. This is Kelly from Kelly's Coffee and Crime Chat. I am a day late. The week's got away from me. So it is now Saturday, June 28th. And, oh, wow, weeks are going pretty fast. So I thought I would go ahead and get this episode up. I am drinking Java Mama bourbon caramel donut coffee, and it is so good. This is probably the best one from our donut collection that I've tried. I have not tried Nutty by Nature or the strawberry one. But Java Mama, they just now came out with their ice cream line. I am so excited for this. It is ice cream coffee, bananas Foster. I know one time they had a hot fudge sundae that was so good. I don't think that one's, I think there's a praline and a couple other ones that come to mind. But I'm telling you, their ice cream coffees are wonderful for summer. You can also make them in the cold brew, as well as hot. Coffees are green and clean, better for your gut, and air roasted so you don't taste the roaster. You taste the whole bean. Available in ground coffee, whole bean, or singles. If you have a Keurig machine like I do, I have a Keurig machine and a regular coffee maker. So I will leave the link in the show notes. I've been having sinus trouble, so I have to clear my throat every once in a while. I also have had coughing and sneezing fits earlier today. Otherwise, I would have recorded this morning, but man, I was just having a hard time when I got up. This case is Sharon Sue McKinney-Ray. And I got this, the sources are findagrave.com and the ID show Murder in the Heartland. The episode is called Living Among Liars. It is season 6 of episode 12. That is a very good series. I love that series. Now, this takes place in Grand Rivers, Kentucky. And Sharon Sue McKinney was born April 19th, 1965. Somewhere in her life, she married somebody with the last name of Ray, and I never found out who he was. I dug to see who her husband was. I never did find out. But this takes place in Livingston County, which is a small community. It's a very small community, but there's a lot of land, a lot of acreage. She was a 38-year-old dental assistant at White & White Dentistry, so she had a very good job. She was living with her boyfriend, Bob Gaines. She, I think, recently got this job. Now, she wasn't making a lot of money. She could have easily lived on her own, but she was living with her boyfriend, Bob Gaines. Well, she didn't show up for work at the beginning of April of 2004. So her mother was contacted by somebody at her job, and this was a few days after the beginning of April. So actually, her mother didn't even talk to her for a few days. And so her mother reported her missing. Now the police interviewed Bob Gaines because he was the one living with her. And he just said she took off for a walk after they argued on the night of April 2nd. It was at night, but he said it was normal for her to just leave the house for a while. Even days. I mean, her family and friends said that this was normal for her. So he said she took her Walkman. Now, he said Walkman. So I don't know if it was the actual brand of Walkman, but if anybody remembers in the 80s, this took place in 2004. But the Walkman was a thing where you hook it to your pants and you put your little cassette tape in, or a radio. You could listen to a radio. And then you put the headphones on that plugged into it. There was no wireless. So he said she took a Walkman with her, which she could have. And he did let the police search the home. So they searched the home. They didn't find anything out of the ordinary. They didn't find any evidence of a struggle or anything like that. Now, rumors were going around town that she hung out with a motorcycle gang, and their name was the Iron Horsemen. Now, the Iron Horsemen did drugs, and of course, Sharon would know about this. So the rumors were like, oh, she'd be a witness if they got in trouble. She probably, told on one of them, and they probably did something with her. Rumors were, kidnapping, murder, or whatever else, and tips were coming in to the police. And there was one anonymous call that Sharon was in a well. So they had to go out and search to make, in case this tip was legit, So they had to go out and search properties. And like I said at the beginning, there was a lot of acreage in this community, a lot of land to cover. So they're searching on what properties would have a well. And nothing came up. Well, June 25th of 2004, another anonymous tip came in that was very, very specific, telling them they need to look in the area of Austell Loop. And I think that was the name of the street because there was a street sign that said Austell on it, and it was not far from where Sharon was living and where she disappeared from. The well and location was even described by the caller. It was in the woods, not far off the road, and it was covered with a piece of tin over the top of it. They found where the location was. The well was not big at all. It was pretty narrow. They found lime. When they looked inside, they found lime. And then they saw shoes. So the person was thrown in head first into this well. The well was very narrow. So it would have been a very tight fit for someone to get a body, an adult, down into this well. The fire department was needed to get her body out of there. And they were able to get her out. But the thing is, the lime did not cover her whole body. So lime is usually something people use when they want to something to decompose fast. Well, it didn't cover the whole body. It was like she was just thrown in or put in the well somehow. And the lime was just thrown on top. And they put the tin on top and left like they were in a hurry. And this was out in the woods. So I guess it was out in the woods, so they didn't really take as much time with the lime when they just threw the lime in, thinking it would work, I guess. So when they got her out, oh my gosh, the smell was horrible in the well. It was like, smelled like death. And that's because the lime did not cover her entire body. But they retrieved her out of the well, and of course it was Sharon Ray. A work glove was also found inside the well on Sharon's body. They also saw that there was a gunshot wound to her head. Their first thought was the person who called in the tip was the person responsible because they specifically knew exactly where she was and described the well. So that is one thing that they thought for sure, that person knew a lot. And they went back and dug up the area to see if they could find any additional evidence. So they dug up the well. And they did not find any more. Sharon and Bob were described as opposites. She was more outgoing and likable, where he was not. He was just the total opposite of her. So he had to be questioned, of course, since he was the last one to see her. Plus, he did not report her missing. Her mother reported her missing. He didn't even report her missing, and she'd been gone for days. So he told the police that there was a woman named Sue Harness, Harnice, and she was a beautician in town and was thought to be the best beautician in the town. And she was Sharon's best friend since high school. Well, she had been there that night. She was talking to Sharon about dental work that she needed done. And Bob told the police that Sharon left after an argument she had with Sue. Sue ended up staying all night there because she was on some kind of meds and couldn't stay awake or couldn't drive back. So she stayed all night there. But also, Sue did not report Sharon missing. This is her best friend. So now she was someone that the police had to go question. During the investigation, they found out that Sue had shot her ex-husband. Her husband was abusing her. Now, they didn't say she killed him. So I don't think he died. I think she just shot him, and she did not serve jail time for this. She was brought in for questioning on June 27th, and this was 2 days after Sharon was discovered. Of course, she said the same thing as Bob, but she did say that Sharon said she'd be right back when she left. It was on the actual police recording of her investigation or interrogation, and they heard from a neighbor that Sue's car had been moved in the driveway. Like, it was in one place and then it was in another. It had been moved. So they asked her about it, but she didn't have an answer. So that right there is kind of fishy. Maybe she doesn't know about it, but maybe somebody else in the household used her car. Now that's what they were trying to get at. Well, she did not have an answer as to why her car was moved. It sounded to me like she didn't even know. Well, Sharon had a civil attorney, and she called him. Now, this was weeks before her murder. Her attorney said it didn't sound like anything was wrong. Bob was even in the background that said hello to him. He said hello to him. They both knew him. And Sharon wanted her attorney to write some names down and take them to the authorities if anything should happen to her. He was shocked about this and had no idea what she was talking about. Now, I don't even think he wrote the names down because he said something like he didn't want to get involved in it. So Sharon even had a listening device to record, and it was something where you point it to the house and you can hear what people are saying inside. I've never heard of this, but she had a listening device, and this is what her friend Sue, told the authorities. She had some listening device that you pointed it in a certain direction. Now, her mother said that Sharon told her if anything happened to her, it was not Bob. Okay, I didn't know how to take that when I heard that, but she's been talking a lot about things, but her mother didn't know what she meant. Like, she wouldn't come out and actually say it. She would just say, if anything happens to me, it's not Bob. It's, I'm not sure exactly what the words were, but there was a guy named Randy McDonald, and he was someone who was part of the Iron Horseman motorcycle gang. Now, he was a large man who could take just about anyone in a fight. He was a friend of Sharon's, or he knew, of course he was a friend of Sharon's. Another friend of Sharon was Phyllis McDonald. Now, she was married to a Derek McDonald. Now, Derek is the nephew of Randy, who's the big guy. So Phyllis's husband is the nephew of Randy. She heard Randy say that Sharon was in a well. She just heard it. Phyllis did. Now, before it was known that she was in a well, nobody knew. She just heard she heard Randy say it. Well, she took it upon herself to go to this well, found the tin stacked on top of the well. She removed it, looked in, saw lime, and then she saw the feet, which was Sharon's shoes. Then she left. She was not going to get involved. She didn't want to know any more about it. She's like, I'm staying out of this. I'm done. I can't, it freaked her out, of course. So then she was afraid Randy was involved. She was afraid her husband may be involved. But she was the infamous anonymous tip. She was the one that called it in. She was worried, like I said, that her husband would be involved, and she ended up telling police that Randy told her about the well. So, because they ended up bringing her in, and since she was the anonymous tip caller. And I never found out if she just told them she was the anonymous caller or they found out, but she was brought in. And she told Randy he needed to tell the police if he knew who did this. She told him that before. I mean, when she heard that he said she was in a well. So, but the police couldn't find Randy. She said that Randy was a nice guy. He wasn't one that would kill somebody, and he was afraid they were going to come after him. So I think he went into hiding, and that's why they couldn't find him. Well, on June 28th, 2004, Randy McDonald turned himself in just to be questioned. And he said he didn't know a thing about Sharon Ray. That's what he was telling them. They told him about the glove that was left behind. And that's when he was not happy at all, because that glove was his. He said it was his cousin who told him that he killed Sharon and needed help disposing of her body. Randy said he poured the lime in the well. And this happened again on April 2nd of 2004. Then he drops the information that his cousin is Bob Gaines. Bob threatened to get him and his family if he did not help. And he tells the police this, and Bob Gaines was arrested. So that brought me back to why Sharon told her mom if something happens to her, it's not Bob. And I'm like, was she hinting that it would be Bob by saying it's not? Because to me, if you are going to tell somebody that if something happens to you, it's not a certain person, wouldn't you think, why are you saying that, like out of the blue, that it's not this person? It just, like, it almost tells you that you would suspect that it was this person. Of course, he was living with her. They were, that's the person they first look at. I never found out who the names were that she wanted the attorney to write down. I never found out anything like that, who she suspected would be after her for something. But she was going to leave Bob Gaines. And she knew some stuff about him. He had some kind of pending charge against him. And she knew about it. So, of course, she would have to, tell the police the truth if they question her. Or if something happens and she has to go to court and testify against him. But she was planning on leaving him. So that's what they think the motive was in this whole thing. Now, February 24th of 2005, Bob Gaines' trial was going on. Now, on the 24th, now he had a public defender. He still said Sharon left, and he just didn't call police because it was normal for Sharon to leave. So he's still sticking to his story. So he still is not admitting it. Randy McDonald testified in this trial and told his story. So he was charged with an accessory to murder, but then it was reduced to tampering with physical evidence for his testimony because he testified against Bob, and he got 5 years probation. Bob Gaines was sentenced to 20 years on April 6th of 2005. But December 7th, 2011, 6 years later, he died in prison. So he died in prison anyway. So now I'm thinking, you just killed this poor woman for what? What did you kill her for? She was going to leave you because you had some pending charge, and now you die 6 years later. I never heard what he died of. I was even looking that up because I went to find a grave, and that's when I found the date that he died. But I never found out what it was. And I even looked. I was like looking everywhere. If anybody knows any more about this, let me know. You can comment in Spotify. My email's also in the show notes. But I'm just curious to know more about this case. Like, what were the people that she thought were going to be after her? Who were the names? And it just had me wondering. So this case is really intriguing because when I looked it up, there's not very many. I couldn't find much information. Like, there was no Wikipedia page. There was no Medium page, which I subscribe to that. And I couldn't find anything anywhere about Sharon Ray. And I even Googled Sharon Sue McKinney, Sharon McKinney. I put the Livingston County, Grand Rivers, Kentucky. I wasn't sure if I even mentioned. Did I mention that at the beginning? It was Grand Rivers, Kentucky. I apologize if I didn't, but I'm just like, I don't know. There's not much information about this, but it is a very good episode of Murder in the Heartland. So, what a story. But anyway, I just wanted to talk about this one for supposed to be June 27th, but it is June 28th as I am recording. So I want to thank everybody for your support. I was watching Netflix, and I got into the Trainwreck series. That's actually a series called Trainwreck, and there's documentaries, and the Poop Cruise was the new one. Of course, I watched that. I'm telling you what, I have never went on a cruise, nor do I ever want to, especially after seeing this. And I remember when that happened, and it was a floating petri dish in the ocean. No power. They were just there in the ocean, and who knows what would have happened to them if they wouldn't have been towed to Alabama. But they were towed to Alabama. But the problem with towing it to Alabama, there was a tugboat, and as you're pulling something, it can kind of tilt. Well, that's where all the toilet stuff, spilled out, and it was flooding with shit, basically. Flooding with shit, So I'm like, oh my gosh. I remember when this happened. And what I thought was intriguing was people were not worried about according to the documentary anyway, it seemed like they weren't as worried about the boat going down as they were about going a number 2 in a red bag. That's what their problem was. It's like, hey, if you got to go, I'll go in a red bag. I just want to get off this boat. I don't want it going down. Oh my gosh, it is very highly recommended. If you got Netflix, that's one that's recommended. Another one that's really good is The Titan, which talks about the submarine that went down to see the Titanic. Very good. You really understand what this guy was like. And there's a lot of engineering facts in it, which was very fascinating to me. Carbon fiber, using that. Oh, if you've seen it, oh my gosh, you can hear the fibers popping as it's going down. So it's like that popping means they're breaking. It's breaking apart. Those fibers are breaking. Oh my gosh, I tell you, I don't know. It was very poorly built. For someone that was so smart, he really was so dumb. And that's a really dangerous person, is someone who thinks they're so smart, which are very, very, can be very, very smart in certain areas. So he should have known better. But when you get the arrogance in there and you're like, oh, nope, I know how to do this. No, you don't. You don't. You think you do, but you really don't. I had friends like that. One of them actually was one that I had a blow up with a few years ago. And I'm going to tell you what, my life has been so peaceful without her in it. But it just goes to show you that, yeah, certain people you do have to cut out of your life, especially one like this guy. And if anybody questioned him, he'd fire him. I don't want to give anything away, but just watch the documentary if you have it on, if you have Netflix. Another one I watched was Astroworld, which was very good. Oh my gosh. This is one reason why I don't like big concerts. People getting trampled. People, suffocating, passing out, and people had their live phones going. So it was almost like being underwater. Talking about being underwater, that's what it sounded like. Because you can see people with their phones and they would get trampled or smothered. And you can hear the sound in the phone. It sounded basically like you were underwater, because that was scary just watching it from. It was like you got the point of view because they were using their phones, and it was a lot of smartphones, because that just happened not too long ago. And then Woodstock 99 is another good one I watched. That one, I'm sorry. First of all, there's a lot of naked people in it, and if you're not really... I love the Red Hot Chili Peppers. They're one of my favorite bands. They headlined Woodstock 99, but I didn't really need to see Flea naked. That just about scarred me for life, but I love the band. But anyway, very good documentary. I remember when that went on, I was working at the post office, and I remember that was my weekend off, because I never had many weekends off. But as that was going on, I was in Indianapolis seeing Rick Springfield, my teen idol. He was making his comeback then, and I actually got invited on stage to be with him, between him and his guitar, as we were singing. And I just think about that weekend, and I remember it was July 24th. It was a Saturday, and it's my brother's birthday, but that was that same weekend. And I'm just like, oh, I was a lot happier than some of these people at Woodstock 99. And the porta potties, talk about poop. The porta potties they thought they were all rolling around in the mud, but it wasn't mud. It wasn't mud. It was the same as the poop cruise. I'm like, oh, gross. Oh, my gosh. Oh, what a mess. Anyway, there's some documentary recommendations for y'all. I have been listening to Crime Weekly. If you don't listen to that podcast, they are also on YouTube, which is really cool because then you can see the photos of what they're talking about. There is a 5-part episode in 5 parts. This one case where this woman killed her 2 little boys, and it's very sad. Very, very sad. And it surprises me people think she's innocent. But anyway, if you want to look that up on Crime Weekly, it's toward the top under the Karen Reed trial. So they got the Karen Reed trial, then they got part 5 of the woman's name. And I was going to write it down, but I keep forgetting about what the woman's name is. I want to say Darcy, but I know that's not what it is. But it's something along that line. Karen Reed trial. That's another big thing in the true crime world right now, and I'm very glad it came out the way it did, because I don't think that they had enough evidence to convict that woman. I really don't. When you talk about the taillight being busted, and I just don't think they had enough evidence for her. And I was following it after the first trial, and I really started getting interested in it. And Death Do Us Part, which is a podcast I listen to that's here in Chicago, very, very blunt, husband and wife team, covered one part of that, and I'm waiting for the second part to come out because I want to listen to it. But that's Jamie and Mark. That's their name. It's Death Do You Part, not Till Death Do You Part. It's Death Do Us Part, DDUP. Sorry, Death Do Us Part. And I'm looking forward to their second part. Love, Marry, Kill just did a 2-parter on David Hendricks. Very big in my area. I also did that episode way back when. They do a pretty good, it's pretty good episodes that they're doing. I'm on the second one right now. I'm listening to it. I remember when that happened. You talk about big news, especially after that second trial that he had. He was in Menard Prison, and Menard Prison is a rough prison. But that second trial, I'm just like, I remember everybody, and it was just talking about it at that time. And I think I was like 19 or 20. When they had the second trial, if I can remember. It was right around that time. So, have a great weekend, everybody. I'm so sorry I was late with this. I know I don't have a lot of listeners, but thank you all for the ones who are listening. My Patreon is $5 a month. I have over 150 episodes on there. I do 3 bonus episodes a month. And I just did Death at Disneyland last week, and I'm getting ready to do the 3rd one for June. I try to make 3. That's my goal. There has been times where I've only made 2, but it's very, very rare. And then if something happens to where I'm sick or I'm not able to do, like when I had carpal tunnel surgery, I give a month free. So I don't bill for a month where I don't upload anything. This will not be up early for them, though, because I'm late, so I apologize. So have a great one, everybody. Have a wonderful weekend, and have a safe and happy 4th of July. And I will see you next time.